All right, so can everyone hear me and see me here? Just trying to make sure this is working right. Hello, 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 hello. It's working? Okay, cool. Oh, sorry about that. I'm new at this live stream thing, so um, how's it going, Matt? Um, whoop, let's get rid of this thing here. Had this all set up and didn't even work the way I wanted it to. But so how's it going, everybody? Oh, thanks, JG. Thank you so much. I actually just so people know that are jumping on, I do have a brand new tutorial that I put out for just in time for Lightbox. It's a Procreate painting I did of Humphrey Bogart. You can find it at gumroad.com/Jason Seiler. I'm gonna type it in here so people can check it out if they want. Um, and it's a really cool tutorial. I feel pretty proud of it. It did a lot of work into it, and just tried to show and teach a technique of painting digitally, but in the mindset of a traditional painting. Not zooming in very much, mostly on one layer. And I just released today the actual file. So you can go to Gumroad and you can actually buy the actual file of that painting, and it's in layers, so you can look at it close up. You can see the sketches and the different layers and that sort of thing. So I thought that'd be kind of cool to make available to everybody. So what I want to do is I'm gonna try to like look at comments as much as I can here. But I'm gonna start painting. So if I don't see all your comments, it's because I'm painting. So, and what I want to do here is I want to do this sketch or paint this sketch that I did of Octavia Spencer, and I love this actress, and I saw this movie Ma, and it was just really an awesome movie to watch with my teenage daughters. A lot of fun, and I just loved her character in it, so I did a sketch. I love this reference of her from the Oscars, and it just the expression is like hard to resist as a caricature artist. But so I had to do that. But then I wanted to add this hairstyle that she had from that movie, so that's why the hair looks different. It's actually from this reference from the movie. Um, so I'll probably look at that a little bit later once I get into this a little bit more. But what I wanted to do is and by the way, I'm planning on doing this for a couple hours. A lot of the Lightbox artists have been doing like an hour or so, but I want to do at least 2 hours. That's probably what it's going to take for me to do a nice block in that I feel good about. So, anyways, I will try to answer questions as much as I can, but I'm going to mostly be painting. I want to show you guys the palette. So what I did here is I spent some time pre-mixing colors because I didn't want to waste time during the stream of just mixing colors. It's kind of boring. But let me explain something really quick. Um, a lot of times when I paint digitally, it's more by feeling. I feels like it should be warmer. It feels like it should be cooler, but I'm also thinking about the values. That's the main thing, and I don't really care if it's not the 100% exact color from the reference. So I just try to do what I can to make it a good painting. So I'm not trying to copy the photo exactly. Um, so here's the other thing. I'm using basically what I did here is it's basically you can see at the top of this is like a primary. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and just make this the full window. It's basically like primary colors, and let me show you really quick a few things. Like for example, if I take red and this yellow, I'm obviously gonna get like an orangey color. um, and you can see what black does to that. So you get different variations of that. Um, Red and black, you can get almost like this kind of violet color. You can see what white does to that. Um, and same thing with yellow and blue. You're going to get like a green. You get different variations of that depending on how much you mix with it. Same with black and yellow. You're going to get another variation of green. And then of course you start mixing the different primaries together, and you're going to get a whole bunch of different combinations. Um, of course, red and blue, you're going to get even more of a violet kind of color. So that's the basic idea. And what I do is I try to blend these colors together just and look at her skin tone to try to get colors that match. Like this color here, you can see is very similar to this color here. And so that's basically what I do is I try to create the colors as much as I can. And so I kind of just block them all in. It's a little bit sloppy, but there's enough colors here that feel close to what I'm seeing in the reference. And this is something that I do ahead of time before I usually paint. It helps me to be able to work faster. Um, so hopefully that makes sense. Um, and what's up, TJ? And so basically, what I try to do is I prefer painting in a limited palette. That's sort of the way that I approach painting altogether, digitally, traditionally. I use a Zorn palette a lot of the times, but this is basically your basic you know red, yellow, blue, black, white, and you can pretty much get a wide range. Um, her uh, the lighting and the color in this is all very much in the same family. A lot of warms um, and so I it's not going to be as all over the place as far as you know crazy. It's not, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not crazy lighting or anything. So this it's pretty straightforward, and I'm going to try to. Um, sorry, I'm getting messages from people and I don't like it. So I'm going to try to just keep it as basic and straightforward as possible. Um, oh, Wes wants to know about my brush settings. Thank you for bringing that up. So what I decided to do, first of all, let me just show you guys this sketch real quick. So this sketch was done in Procreate. Okay, so not a Photoshop sketch. I really like sketching in Procreate, and this is all done with a pencil brush called Peppermint. And I like that brush a lot because it feels very natural, like a pencil. And I love sketching in Procreate. It just feels very natural to me, very relaxing. I can sit in the couch with my kids and just doodle and stuff. And that's what I did with this one. Um, and I kept it pretty loose. And if you look at the layers here, um, it's pretty simple. It's basically a gray background. Um, the pencil sketch. This is all in one layer, and then there's a background that's got some other layers here, or some other background lighting, and then there's just a signature layer. Um, that's pretty much it. Now, as far as my brush for Photoshop, what I want to use here is a brush 24, which comes with Photoshop, and if you look here, it's kind of like the round brush that comes with Photoshop, but it's got a little bit of a painterly tooth to it. And I like painting with it because, um, first of all, I'm doing this because it comes with Photoshop, and so most of you will be able to have this brush, and it's not some fancy whatever brush, but this is a brush I've been using for years for my work. I do love to use Kyle Webster brushes, texture brushes, and different things. There's a lot of brushes that I use from his brushes, but I didn't really want to get into that with this because I want to be able to use what most people are going to have access to. If you don't have Brush 24, I've heard that for some reason Adobe doesn't really. Sometimes they don't have it, or there's been people having a hard time finding it. I don't know. I still have it, but I've been using this brush for years and years and years and years. But if you don't have this brush for some reason, you can use just a regular round brush and just paint with that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go underneath, make a layer underneath my line work, and I'm just going to do some block in with like a mid-tone here. You can see like this kind of feels like a mid-tone, and I'm just going to start doing like a block in underneath here, and even the whites of the eyes I'm going to block that in as well. And I'm just putting down like a foundation really, um, to build off of, you know. And this is really nice because even though this is just a basic sketch, there's enough information there, um, that I can see, you know, as far as values and structure and that sort of thing. So it really helps to have a decent sketch before you start blocking in a painting. You don't have to though. Yesterday I was in the Lightbox drawing feeds or live jams, and I did one of Fats Domino, and what I did with that one was just all brushwork. So um, there was no build up of there was no drawing or anything like that. It was just all done with a paintbrush. Sorry, sometimes it's hard to paint and talk and think at the same time. So, and for now, I'm just gonna put like a light violet over the hair, maybe a little bit in the side of her face here too. Um, Someone said, "Why not paint in Procreate as well?" I do paint in Procreate as well, but for this, for this, I'm painting on here because I don't know how to do live streaming on my iPad. So one step at a time, people. I'm just now figuring this stuff out. So yeah, I'm very new to this whole streaming thing. So it's a very new, I guess, ordeal. Um, let's see. But yeah, I'm sure that I can stream live on an iPad as well, but that's going to be something I'm going to have to figure out one of these days. So at this stage, I'm not going to get too crazy detailed um, with the under painting part. Um, I'm just going to kind of block in a little bit. And the thing is um, a lot of the um, a lot of the lines, like the pencil lines, I'm gonna paint above that so I can go underneath and erase some of those lines as I paint. They're just a guide, basically. Um, and it's just to kind of help me get a good start here. Yeah, and this part is very easy to do. This part, you just kind of, and like I said, I kind of pre-mixed some colors that I felt were good for certain areas, like the mouth here. When I mix these colors, I try to get like this area is basically colors that seem similar to this, and I'm sure I'll change as I paint. Um, but this is something that I started doing a couple years ago when like my dad's an oil painter, does a lot of plein air stuff, and one time I was watching him do a demo, and he was talking about how he can pre-mix a palette, decide what kind of palette he wants to use while he's outdoors, and the light's changing and everything, and he's got like pretty good mix of color available already. And I thought that's that makes a lot of sense. So I started kind of doing that with digital just to get a good block in. And then once I start going, I I change it quite a bit as I go. Push things a little bit further and that sort of thing. But so, and the other thing too um, is I like the sketch, but one thing I would say is don't be afraid to change a little bit. Like don't be so committed to the sketch that you can't change it at all. As the painting develops, because um, there's there's not going to be it's not going to be 100% correct the whole time, right? Like a sketch is a sketch, and for me, anyways, when I start painting, I start noticing things that could be a lot better, um, things that I'll start adjusting and changing. Um, I'm gonna make a actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna just paint on top of this layer. Well, I'll make a new layer just for now, just in case I want to save it. But let's see here. So, what was I gonna say? Oh, the other thing I was gonna say is, I think I'm going to um, paint most of this on one layer. Once I get going, this is just like for the block in. But the other thing is I'm not going to zoom in very much because I want it to be, um, basically paint from a distance, see the whole piece from a distance. And once I get it blocked in enough where I feel pretty good about it, then I'll start zooming in and looking at the details and that sort of thing. Um, and this background is not super important at this stage. I'm just wanting to kind of clean this up a little bit before I get started. Alright, so when you're mixing your color palette, TJ says, in Photoshop, do you just turn mixing up to get the colors to blend? To be honest, I'm not sure what that means, turn mixing up. This is just a regular brush. My settings, you can see my opacity is at 100, my flow is at 100. And that's all I'm doing. It's just the pressure all comes from how hard I press my hand down, and my settings here in the brushes are, I have transfer on, and I have pen pressure on both of these settings here, and that's it. That's all I do. There's no real trickery to it. Um, so there's like a warmth behind her, um, that kind of, there's like a slight warmer color back here. So I'm taking some of her flesh tones and kind of using some of that to block in that. But again, I'm not going to be too concerned about that right now. I'm just going to kind of do this kind of quickly back here. Um, yes, thank you, uh, Leah. Yeah, Sarah. I'm using a different hairstyle from a different movie. Um, I wanted to paint her character more from that movie, from Ma. And let's see. Um, there's no layer set to multiply. Not right now, anyways. This is all like, the only thing is the line work is on a layer above, so that way I can kind of block in underneath. And so like rather like pretty quickly here, I've got like it's a good block in, and I haven't really done too much yet. So this is just a quick way to start getting some information put down. This is how I start most of my paintings. Sometimes I just start painting direct on top too, um, and other times I do this. Um, your teaching here inspires me. It seems to me, many paintings have three basic colors. How do you think about basic colors when you paint or observe? Thank you, Juan. That's basically what I do. I keep it very limited. I have my palette here. It's pretty much a primary palette. And then here's the other thing that I do. I'm going to explain this as I work, but let's say I'm working on the face here, and I've got this color here, but I want it to be warmer or cooler. I just use this to move around to adjust my saturation, my desaturation, and that's pretty much it. I paint with that. I use this a lot for my painting. It helps me to. I can kind of sense, I guess, it needs to be warmer or cooler or whatever it's going to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new layer on top of the line work. So let me turn these layers off just to show you right now where I am. So I have my main layer, which is just the kind of the line art on the gray background, and then just a little bit of color added into that, and then a little bit more added to the background there. So that's where we're at this point. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer on top, and this is where I'm going to start painting opaquely on top of my sketch lines. And this can be tricky sometimes with the palette here. But I'm going to start by blocking in over here. And see, like this right here already, I feel like I can go a little darker. So I just go over here to what feels like what I want right there. A little bit darker value in there. Okay. And my approach a lot of times is to I tend to block in areas a little bit darker than they need to be because I enjoy pulling the light out of those areas. So if I can kind of get a darker value in there, to me it helps. It's a little bit quicker way for me to work. And I'm going very, very lightly. I'm pushing this really light. The pressure. If I was to paint really dark, it would look like that. But right now I'm doing like this kind of a thing where it's real soft. And it's kind of like maybe a watercolory type technique. But it's something that I do usually at the beginning here, just to kind of start blocking in what feels right. And again, like don't get caught up with trying to paint every single color exactly, um, like basically trying to copy the photograph. I'm trying to create a painting that feels realistic and captures the lighting and the values. And so again, focusing more on value and temperature rather than just eye dropping everything and that sort of a thing, which a lot of people do. I'm not saying that's terrible. It's just not the way that I like to paint. I like to I like to feel like I'm actually painting. Um, so that's why I like to mix my colors, and I like to push myself that way. To me, if I do it with that approach, it starts feeling and looking, I guess, more like a real painting. Um, Whereas I can tell when a digital painting is just all eye dropped. You can tell I'm just not a fan of that um, type of painting. You know, I'm very much a big fan of you know, even though it's digital, making it feel traditional. And I know it's from a distance. Like I said, I'm not. I don't want to zoom in too much at this stage because um, it can get you can start getting too focused on details, and I really don't want to be focusing on details at this stage of the painting. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions or anything. Okay. Do you think it's important for new artists to learn traditional painting first, or do you think you can learn the same techniques digitally? Um, well, well, I think that it's really important to learn how to paint traditionally. It's not going to hurt, it's not going to hurt your painting. I think that really it's going to make things better. You're going to be a better artist overall. Um, I don't get to paint traditionally as much as I would like, but I do know that the more I paint traditionally, the better my digital paintings are, you know? So I learned a lot about technique and brushwork and and that sort of a thing from here. I'm gonna make some kind of cooler gray here. Sorry. I learned a lot about technique from painting traditionally with my digital work, and so I definitely recommend it. So I just did that because I want like a cooler tone on that eyeball. The other thing is, don't be afraid to just paint what you're feeling, especially when you're painting digitally. If you feel like this needs to be a little bit violet, paint in there. Because guess what? You can fix it so easily. You can change it like, you know, I run into people that are wanting to learn how to paint a lot, and that they seem like they're afraid of color and afraid to try things. But just go for it because it's so much easier to adjust and change things that you might as well just go for it. It's not really gonna. It's not like it's that hard to fix it. I know that sounds like really simple, but it is, I think. Um, and I know this sounds kind of strange before I say it, but try not to think too much because you can easily overthink things, and like every once in a while, I don't know if this happens to any of you guys, but when you're painting, you're thinking so much, and all of a sudden you don't even know what. I mean, this sounds silly, even saying this. Sometimes I will think about it too much, and then all of a sudden I don't even know what color I'm looking at anymore. Like it doesn't register, and that can be like super frustrating. So you know, I would suggest um, not worrying about that too much, or not thinking too much is what I was trying to say. Like don't overthink it. It's easy to do that though when you're painting. And here's something I want to do. I just thought of. I'm gonna do this. I really like these lashes here. I don't want to lose some of these, so I might just, for now, What did I do? I'm just going to keep these as a guide for when I want to paint the lashes later on, maybe. It's not even a big deal. I just want to remember where I put it. Yeah, exactly. Overthinking always leads to over rendering. Exactly. That's what I'm trying to avoid. Um, okay. So I have what I did there. I don't know if it's confusing or weird, but so I have this other layer that I just copied those lashes. So like right now, I kind of want to just block this area in with the right kind of value and color that I'm seeing. And again, it's not like it would be hard to just paint the lashes there. I just kind of liked the way that they looked. So now they're there on a different layer and I can just go over them later when I want to. Um, it's not really any of you that do digital stuff. I'm sure you do other things. I don't really do too many tricks. So, but that's one thing I do sometimes. Like if there's something, one little bit that I like from the sketch that I want to keep. And actually, to be honest, I want to change this because the reference. Let's see here. The reference angle. I want to change it a little bit more because I think I drew it at a different angle here. So I just want to make sure I'm looking at it the right way. Um, Zoom this back a little bit more too. And because I'm doing a different hairstyle as well, there's going to be different things that I'm going to do in this painting that aren't necessarily in the reference. For example, probably paint a little bit of a shadow under this hair. But again, I I'll look at this reference to get some ideas of what to do. Like there's a nice shadow here. So for example, I might do something where on the edge here I might just make this a little bit darker where it meets the hair. But I'm not really going to worry about that at this stage. So you might see some different colors that aren't in the reference. Like in this reference, this is really, really bright here. So I might do something like, um, you know, on this part of her hair, I might lighten this up, excuse me, a little bit more. And so basically I'm using creative freedom there. Like I'm not going to be copying the hair exactly from both references. It's going to be whatever it takes to make this feel as close as possible, if that makes sense. So you want to make sure that you're sticking to your values as far as anatomy and everything like that. But you can you know once you basically understand the values and what you're doing with the image, you can be free to do a lot of different changes, whatever it takes to make it feel balanced and right. So, but I'm not going to really block in the hair at this point anyway. So, um, how do you avoid over rendering when you decide something is ending? Fernando, good question. Well, I mean, over rendering isn't. Um, Let me see how can I explain this from my perspective. Is that um, I'm not really worried about over rendering at this stage. It's not really at all what I'm thinking about. Um, But to me, it's just about, it depends on what it is. If it's a really quick deadline and you only have a certain amount of time, then I think, you got to think about that. Like, you only have a certain amount of time to do it, so you're going to do what you can. And in that case, I'm just thinking about how do I do a final piece of art that looks good. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter if it's super, super rendered. Like, is the likeness, good? And to be honest, like, even at this stage right now, um, even though there's enough information in my sketch that this already looks decent, and I've barely started. So you basically got to decide, like, what is your, you know, what's the goal of the piece you're working on? Like, how much do you want to render it? And at this stage of the painting, my goal right now is just to block it in, to a point where I like how it's feeling, and then if I get it to that point where it's really coming together, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and start rendering. Um, if that makes any sense. I know I'm kind of rambling, but again, I'm trying to paint at the same time, so it's a little bit hard sometimes. Uh, but I just think that it's really important to not overthink it, and that can be really challenging. It can be really challenging to, um, But the other thing is, and maybe this, Fernando, maybe this helps answer the question a little bit, but I'm not like, I don't think that painting it painting something that's super super super, um, like, overly rendered. It's not something that really excites me. Um, like, I know a lot of people just want to paint things like all the skin textures and all this kind of stuff. It's like, I'm more interested in basically trying to capture a decent painting, as far as anatomy, values, and structure, and then that kind of stuff, those kind of details, that's like just the sugar on top. That's not really what I want to focus on, um, until I get to that point, if that makes sense. So I don't. I'm not really even thinking about details at all right now. I think that you can kind of get caught up with that. Not you, but as an artist, we can get caught up in that, and I think that, I'm gonna break this up a little bit. Couple. But I think it's really easy to get distracted with the details, and so I try to not think about that until, I get to the end of the painting. Um, let's see here, because it my I guess my approach um, is to try to develop the whole painting at one time, all together at once. And actually, I like that. It looks pretty good. Um, so I move around the whole painting. I don't stay in one area for too long. And if I focus too much on details, as far as, like, like getting the little creases in her lips and stuff, that's just a distracting thing at this stage for me. So I really try to leave that until the end. But details are tempting and they're fun. So I get it. I like, painting details. It's like that movie Karate Kid. Like, before you get too carried away with all the fancy karate moves, first need to wax on and wax off, right? It doesn't seem like the fun part of it, but and as I'm painting, I'll probably there's some things anatomy wise that I think could use some work, and so I'll probably start adjusting some of those things. Like I think I could spend a little bit more time on some of the mouth here. But again, the main thing for me right now is just getting the color blocked in how I want it, and that's the first thing. Just getting kind of getting that mapped out. Because once I have that blocked in the way I want, then it I can kind of go zoom into those areas a little bit more and feel more comfortable doing what I'm doing right now. Like kind of just feeling the value that's supposed to be there or that I want to put there anyways. Some nice like grays in there. They're really cool. And so like there's certain areas too. Like if I want to, go underneath now to my pencil area or pencil area, and kind of just clean that up a little bit, erase some of the layer underneath. That can kind of help just soften some of this up a little bit. I actually like to leave some of the pencil lines in there. It adds character. Oh, and I should save this. That'd be good. Um, so, let's see. How do you choose the colors on your palette? I came in a bit late, sorry. The base colors, I mean. Um, Thank you, spatula or spatule. Yes, I look at the face and I mix colors that feel very similar, and I start blocking them in, and then basically, if I feel like it needs to be warmer or cooler, I go over to this area and I move it around and make adjustments that way. Um, Thank you, Shamit City. Um, Pocket 280 Broken asks, how long would you say it takes to go from a mediocre artist who can kind of make a painting look good or look all right to professional? Um, Man, that's not really a question for me to answer. I can I can tell you only from my own experience. Like I feel like you know I think if you work really really hard, you can do just about anything. When it comes to art, like you can teach yourself how to do any kind of style, any kind of you know painting, but you have to be able to do the work. You know, I'm gonna block in these eyes a little bit more here. So I'm kind of putting like a bluish kind of violet tone there in the eyes, and then I'm gonna take white and just kind of block in a little bit more color and value there. Remember when you're painting the eyes to always remember that they're round. And I know that sounds obvious, but um, trust me, a lot of people seem to forget that the eye is round. It's a round, wet ball, and so if you think about that when you're painting, it'll help. Um, But to answer your question about how long does it take to go from like a sort of mediocre. I mean, it really again, it's just like it just really depends on the person because it depends on how hungry you are, how determined you are. When I decided to learn how to paint, I just got obsessed with it, and I just all I did is paint, 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 um, and it's not something I think that you can just do overnight. I mean, it takes a lot of work. Um, I think my dad told me once, like a long time ago, to be expected to do um, like 500 terrible paintings at least, And luckily, I don't think I did 500 terrible paintings, um, but I definitely did a lot of paintings that were really sucky. Um, but I developed pretty quick because I was doing it every single day obsessively until I felt like I was ready. But I don't think you ever stop growing as an artist. I don't think that's something that we should ever stop doing. I think we should always continue to push ourselves as artists. All right, so I'm just doing a couple again. Like when I zoom in on the eye to work on it at a later point, um, I'll start detailing things even more. But right now, I'm just trying to get like the basics in, so that way I can keep moving around the whole piece. Keep developing it all at once. There's like a nice like violet like I think I mixed up like this violet here maybe. There's like a really nice violety color in here that I want to put down. Yeah. So it feels like a little bit violet-like, and then put it down, and then if it doesn't feel right, zoom in or not zoom in. Go over to the picker, and you can saturate it, desaturate it. Like right now, I feel like I can kind of warm that up a little bit, so I'm gonna warm that up just slightly. No matter okay, so spatula says, no matter how much people tell you how good how good you are, do you ever feel like an imposter? If yes, how do you feel with those feelings? That's a funny question. Um, okay, so um, that's really funny. Do I ever feel like an imposter? Um, Not really. Not an imposter. That's really funny. But I can tell you this though, that I feel like I always have something more to learn. You know, um, there's a lot more to learn about it. Like I think if you have an attitude like, oh, I'm an amazing painter, man. I'm the best there is, and it's like, I mean, yeah, I think I'm decent, but I know there's tons of other artists that are awesome. I just try to think about how I can always improve. Um, but I don't feel like an imposter. I do the work. Um, Imposters don't do covers for magazines and that kind of stuff. It all comes from really hard work and dedication and pushing yourself. Also, the other thing is don't be afraid to realize that you have areas to work on. I definitely there's some things I want to learn a little bit more. Um, I just had Nathan Fawkes on my podcast the other day, So if you check out my YouTube channel, well, you're on my YouTube channel now, but if you check out my podcast, you'll see that um, talk with him, and he's an artist that I really respect his painting, and so there's some cool things I would love to learn about color and stuff. So I think it's always a good idea um, you know, to be humble enough to learn from other artists. Never think that you got it all figured out. So this is nice. I'm gonna make sure that this eyeball is really nice and round here, and kind of let's see, make this come in like that. There we go. So I want to make this look really round and crisp. Okay. So She Meets Cities. Is there a specific technique you use at the foundation stage to make the piece look very exaggerated, character-like, and not too realistic? Um, uh, well, I mean, this I my goal with this was to do a caricature. So if you're asking, is there a specific technique? It's I it's just caricature. I don't know how else to say it. Um, I wanted to have fun, and to be honest, to me this looks more like her than a photo, anyways. I mean, that's just to me. It feels more like her. It's more entertaining. It's more fun to look at. Um, but and like I said, there's so much more you know that I want to try to push when it gets to certain areas, like with the mouth and different things. But the main thing is I'm thinking about caricature the entire time. I'm thinking about exaggeration while I'm painting. So not necessarily now because I'm talking a lot, and it's kind of hard to get into the groove a little bit. So it's a little bit difficult sometimes when you're talking or when I'm talking. But there's some subtleties as I'm painting here where I'm starting to notice I could push a little bit more with some of the features, which I want to try to do. But but yeah, before I start painting it, yeah, I want to make sure that the foundation is strong for sure. Not sure if that's exactly what you meant, but um, it's one thing I try to think of, anyways. Um, let's see. I only feel like an imposter when I'm skipping my daily drawing. Otherwise, I'm hard. Yeah, that's right, Zach. Richard Childs, love your painting, but always better when you do your Trump impersonation. I don't think I want to do that right now. um, I know several artists who feel that way. There tends to be a mindset where people think I'll be real artist if I. Uh, oh, I see what you're saying. When in reality, real artists just get the work done and try to grow. Exactly. Sarah asked, how's your work style or process changed since digital has become the standard? Anything you miss about traditional setup? That's a good question. Um, I want to look at this other reference real quick because I'm not happy with the way that's looking. Um, well, yeah, digital kind of has become the standard. Oh man, something in my eye. Digital has kind of become the standard, but actually, I'm gonna leave that alone for now. I think. Sorry. I stopped doing traditional painting for publication a long time ago because it was just too crazy to meet those deadlines. It was just too nuts, and it was stressful. And so when I started painting digitally, I started to be able to um, paint a lot faster, which gave me a lot more time to like develop things a little bit more and push things more and that sort of thing, and helped me to be able to paint more how I wanted to because I was able to work quicker. Whereas traditionally it was really stressful because I had to scan in the work, color correct it, all this kind of stuff, and if there was changes, that was like a nightmare. And there's like dust and scratches and different things in the work. You had to clean that up, and so there's a lot of things. And this is like 2000, like six or so. I don't know exactly when I started to do that, but um, I just I kind of feel that the traditional stuff is very helpful still for learning how to do cool things when you're painting digitally, and I'll never stop painting traditionally. I feel that it's kind of like my foundation, and I learn. The more I continue to paint digitally, the more I learn about painting. But I learn the most when I paint traditionally, and I'll continue to do it, and I'll continue to work on traditional, mostly oil type stuff, because it's just what makes me happy and what I enjoyed it to. It helps me grow as an artist, but also it really does help teach me things about painting. And I think it's really something that everyone should really mess with and practice with. Sorry, my mind's all over the place right now. I'm trying to. This can be a little bit darker. Um, but I mean, yeah, I wish I could paint traditionally a lot more than I do. Like I really, um, I need to make more time for that. But it's not easy. Um, uh, I was reading your thing, Spatula, talking about conceptual and all that stuff. It makes sense. Yeah. Uh, Zach, fuck what your teacher said. Do you ever, Shemeet City? Do you ever draw on a tablet, iPad only? Um, yeah, I sketched this on an iPad. I did it in Procreate. That's my favorite app so far. I also like Fresco. Um, um, but I'm doing this mostly on this because I don't know how to do live stream on my iPad. This whole live stream is very new to me. It's a very new thing to figure out. I'm surprised this is actually working, to be honest. Let's see. Yes, it is. It is. Zach said, "What a nightmare! Digital is godsend compared to that." Yeah, it is. But still, like, there's nothing like painting traditionally. Um, there was something I wanted to do, and I keep forgetting. I'm all over the place here. Let's see here. Yeah, I agree with Nathan. Both sides have so much to teach. Traditional requires intentional choices, as you have fewer chances, yes, to correct. Digital gives you absolute freedom to experiment, for sure, 100%. Yeah. Yep. When I paint digitally, or sorry, traditionally, I tend to paint a lot slower, more calculated, I think, and it takes a lot longer to mix your color up. You can't just like this. This didn't take me too much time to put these colors together. Um, I do a very similar thing when I work in oils. I'll like pre-mix a bunch of colors that I'm seeing, and then what I do is I start to bend the colors. That's what I call it, anyways. Where as I start to paint, I start realizing that oh, this is close, but it's not 100% close. Like it could be a little bit more warmer or less saturated or that sort of a thing. But that's like it's a good way to start, anyways. I block it in so that I feel like I've got a good head start. this more right there. Like this, these highlights on the eye can be saved for later, but I wanted to add a little bit so it kind of brings it to life just a little bit while I'm working. Let's see. But you'll notice how I haven't really zoomed in much, and I've talked about this before, and that's because at this stage, I'm just trying to, you know, capture the feeling and get my values right. So I want to adjust this mouth a little bit more too. This kind of comes up and down. Areas like the mouth and the eyes, like when I start to kind of detail more, those areas are areas that I will spend the most time on. Like when I'm ready to like start working on details, I'll zoom in on the eyes and really spend a serious amount of time on that. Let's see. Actually, I'll just do this. Okay. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I was just reading some of the comments. So I'm like noticing that the eye can curve in a little bit more here. So I want to make sure I'm getting that right. And let's see. I'll lighten up some of these values up here. All right. Let's see. So again, like I haven't really zoomed in much, so I'm not at this stage. I'm not gonna I'm just kind of paint the nose from a distance. There's some slight things anatomy-wise that I want to adjust still, but I also don't want to get too carried away. With details and stuff. This could all be darker down here. So I'm also thinking about, a lot about values, like certain areas here like are too harsh um, of an edge, and I'm gonna soften those areas. And there's like this kind of like grayish here, like some I'm seeing like a cooler grayer color here in between the nose and this area. So it's kind of like a grayish pink, and I'm seeing a lot of that coming up into the nose. So I'm kind of lightly blocking some of that. And like even this highlight here in the nose, like I'm gonna kind of get rid of that. Let's see. Kind of focus on this shape here. Get the anatomy right. But I'm seeing kind of like a warmish gray highlight in there. Just want to subtly suggest that for now. Fernando, how important is it to study anatomy to make caricatures? Well, that sounds like a trick question. Um, I think it's really important. I don't think you need to know like the names of everything, you know, but I think that like understanding the skull and understanding a little bit about the muscles in the face, that sort of thing, that's really important. Um, Knowing how to draw the features, it's obviously very important. But it depends on your approach, your style. You know, for me, like my preferred way to draw and paint caricatures is you know rendering in a more realistic type way. That doesn't mean that caricatures that aren't done that way aren't good caricatures. You know what I mean? There's a lot of good caricature artists out there who aren't renderers. They basically focus mostly on drawing, and they have different approaches and techniques, more abstract or more cartoony, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's all wonderful. So it really just depends on what you're trying to achieve. For me, for my technique, my approach, understanding anatomy and color and values and light and that sort of a thing is really important. Can't do what I do the way I do it without having that knowledge. Um, it's like drawing hands. Hands are like one of the hardest things for artists to be able to do. For anybody to do, you know. And so you have to study that. You have to study hands and how they work, the anatomy and so on. This could be a lot lighter and warmer. I'm gonna like lighten that up a little bit. But so I mean, if you're just like drawing hands on people, but you haven't studied the anatomy of hands, you're gonna have some pretty crappy looking hands. You have to understand that part of the anatomy. So um, again, as mentioned a few times, excuse me, I tend to not at this stage. I'm still like I would consider this still blocking in, still blocking in everything. I haven't really started any details yet. Um, I don't like to zoom in very much. I like to keep it at a distance like this. Um, Again, to avoid too much detail, or I guess wasting time on detail. I want to make sure that I get things right value wise and you know that sort of a thing before I start thinking about um, things like detail. So that's that's basically one of my only rules, I guess, with painting at this stage is like just try not to get confused or not confused, but distracted, I should say, with the or with details. Details are a lot of fun, but I just like to wait to get those. It's kind of fun too. Like when you're at that stage where you're ready to zoom in. It's like you've got a lot of the work done already. You've got most of um, the hard stuff is blocked in, and now you're ready to have some fun with it and start adding the little details and that sort of thing. But got to take it in baby steps. Now she's got these great eyelashes, um, and I want to see those eyelashes, so I might make a new layer for now and kind of just for now I'm just going to suggest like I want to show that they're there. So I might suggest those there like that. Oh, I should save it again. So let's see. Is there any other questions? Loving it. Wait, hands are evil. Shout out to Iska. That's right, Sarah. Yeah, everyone here, if you're into caricature, you should definitely check out ISCA, the International Society of Caricature Art. We're all like family. Everyone, it's a um, great place to make friends and to learn a lot about different kinds of caricature art and I mean, there's so many awesome, talented artists at ISCA. So definitely check that out for sure. Um, but yeah, like I said, like when you go to some place like ISCA, you'll find out that there's so many different approaches and techniques to drawing and painting. So with caricature though, it's like there's so many different ways you can go. There's so many different ways you can see things. There's not one way that I think is like the way, you know. For me, one thing that I say all the time is I'm always trying to capture the feeling of somebody. Like I want you to look at it and oh, that feels like her, and that's pretty much my approach there. It's not always easy. That's the fun part about it. It's really challenging sometimes, um, but that's what makes me want to keep doing it. Pushing myself. And there's a lot of things on this eye that, again, as I mentioned before, that I'll adjust later. When I zoom in for details. But let's do this real quick. I'm going to add a couple of these little bad boys just for fun. Just a little bit of that helps bring it to life a little bit while we're working on it. And when I zoom in to like detail the eyes more, I will do a lot more little subtle reflected lights and that kind of thing to make it feel more wet and more three-dimensional and that sort of a thing. Um, Loving it. Art of Garav. A quick question about getting into editorial illustrations. How should one approach? Sorry, how should one approach for getting a gig? Is it okay to pitch to randomly or go in through reference? Uh, well, that's a good question. It's very difficult, especially right now. Things have been super slow in the editorial world. So, you know, my suggestion is that you put together a super solid portfolio and you start contacting clients that you want to work with. You send them your work and maybe a real brief bio and hope for the best. I mean, that's that might not be the advice you want, but there, you know, my main thing I would say is make sure you have really good and strong portfolio. Make sure that they know what they're going to get if they hire you. See, part of me sort of wants to play with the anatomy here, but I think I might leave it alone for now. But part of me wants to pull this whole part of her mouth down just a little bit, making the chin just slightly smaller, and it'll give a little bit more space between the nose and the mouth. Like I think I would want to push that just a little bit more, which is something I might consider doing. And that's obviously something that's awesome that you can do digitally, you know. But I just feel like it could definitely maybe push that exaggeration a little bit. I'm gonna actually try that just to show you what I'm talking about. Um, Thank you, Dan Luez. How big is the size of your canvas when drawing digitally? Uh, let's see, how big is this one? This one's only basically 12 by 10, so a little bit over 12 by 10. But sometimes it's 20 inches. It could be whatever I want, really. It's always at 300 resolution, though. Kyle Webster, Jason, you're amazing, my friend. Wish we could be hanging out again. Yes, me too, Kyle. Miss you, bud. Can't believe it's been a year already since the last one. And by the way, I'm sure everyone knows Kyle Webster. He makes the most amazing brushes ever. I'm not using them right now, Kyle, because I want people to be able to use. This is just a basic brush for now, but I usually use Kyle Webster brushes for textures and different things. Love the gouache brushes. Um, okay, cool. So I'm gonna try to do what I was talking about before. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna flatten this, um, and the reason I'm doing that is because I want to grab everything that's here and just bring it. I want to copy this just how it is. I want to play with this. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to what I had before. I usually don't like to do this kind of stuff too often, but if something's bothering me, if something's bothering me, I want to see what. Yeah, see, I like that already. I like that better. Let me see. Not too much. Not too much. All right. So, yeah, so I'm just making this adjustment because I think it would just make it's pushing the expression just a little bit more the way I was wanting it. I'm gonna tighten this up down here. Okay. All right, so kind of make some kind of quick changes here. Let's see. And yeah, you can see this other layer here on top and how it changes. It just kind of brings the exaggeration a little bit more closer to the feeling I was wanting. So now I'm going to flatten it down to that layer, and I want to erase some of this stuff. I'm going to just kind of adjust this a little bit. So what I'm doing now is just kind of adjusting some of the anatomy a little bit, and that'll happen a lot as I paint. Like I'll continue to make those adjustments until it feels right. That's another nice thing about doing a digital painting like this. I really do try to not do that kind of stuff as much as possible, just because I think it's just within me where I feel like I should have drew it the right way first. But then it's kind of like ridiculous. Like if something's bothering you, just take care of it. Fix it. Um, let's see. Okay. Cool. So let me see if there's any other questions. Lester West from Illinois. That's awesome. I'm from Illinois. My brother from an Illinois mother. All right, so I'm going to try to continue this blocking. And so see this. I mean, normally the block-in stage goes a little bit quicker. Um, I have been talking quite a bit. So, but yeah, normally this tends to be a little quicker than this. See, some of these colors feel right. It's fun. You can start to see it start to feel a little bit more. Starting to feel a little bit more realistic. And so another thing that I'm trying to do while I'm doing this is I'm trying to think about the whole face as a three-dimensional object. So everything I'm doing, like, I should be able to grab her head and turn it in three dimensions. Um, I mean, that's the goal, anyways. So that's what I'm trying to think about when I'm trying to block in the lighting and everything. That it all feels three-dimensional. But I'm also trying to think about values. Like, there's areas like right here on the mouth. Like, this is too muddy looking, so I want to fix that. Come back to that later. It's kind of, I guess, like sculpting in a way. You're kind of like adding pieces, taking away pieces. Um, there's a lot of adjustment at this stage too of what I want to keep from my original sketch and what wasn't quite right. And so that's why I say don't be so committed to the original sketch that you're not able to make adjustments and change that. Like this, right here, this needs to come in more at an angle here. Like that, and then but yeah, don't be afraid to make changes. It can be really easy to just get stuck on something that you like original sketch, you know. So I'm gonna get rid of some of these pencil lines in here that are annoying me. Okay. Let's see. So I want that kind of a value here. Right there. And this like highlight here, this area on her cheek is it's kind of a cooler, excuse me, cooler temperature. So I want to lock that in. And this is wrapping around the socket of her eye. So I'm trying to keep that in mind. I exaggerated it quite a bit, so but I want to keep in mind that that is under there, that part of the skull. So when I start getting these little values put in the right place, they're not just there to be fancy highlights, but they're actually there because of anatomy. So okay. Um, Fernando says, how difficult is it to work when the client gives you a reference that looks like an 8-bit drawing, or um, that it's some historical character, which there are a few. Wait. Oh, few quality references. What do you do? Um, yeah, I've had to do that before as well. I try to find as many references as possible. That's basically what I do. And if I have to take pictures of myself or someone else to help me, with like just get with expression, because I've had to do that before. Where I'll have to like make make a lot of it up. I'll do that. Um, it's not easy. It's really frustrating too. But that's basically what I do. Is I try to find as much reference as possible. If that isn't possible, then I make it up. But yeah, I've had to do that. I've had to draw people with like there's like no good reference of them, and it's very hard. It's very challenging. And one thing I do, I think that helps Fernando is I'll tend to put the photo far away, like push it back, the reference, and just try to paint because like a lot of times little details and subtle things will start popping out to me when I see it from a distance. It'll help. Um, so that's one thing that you could try. Um, just goes up like that. I mean, I've had to do paintings before, like realistic portraits of people, so not even caricature, based on the crappiest pictures you wouldn't even believe it, and then I have to try to make the painting look super realistic based off of the worst photo references, and it's like just a nightmare. Um, that's part of the job, though. It's not easy. All right, keep remembering to save. Let's see. Yeah, Kyle, the reference is so funny. um, I need to leave. Thank you, Jason. No problem. Thanks for hanging out, man. Um, it has flown by, Riley. It is crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna probably only do this for another like 20 minutes or so. So try to get this blocked in a little bit more. But so far, I really like how it's looking. I think it's looking pretty cool. Um, let's see. Like actually, the chin is still bothering me. Like that's why I'm zooming back. I want to kind of just again simplify. If you want to simplify, zoom back more. This is bothering me. So um, also this is bothering me too. Let me look at this. Okay. Sorry, I'm just gonna block in some of these valleys here that this is kind of driving me nuts too. And let's go back. So as I go too, like I kind of like play with some of the background because I'm not sure exactly at this. I don't really know exactly how I want to do the background yet, but I just want to kind of block in some of it. Let's see. Actually, I'm looking at this now. There's a lot of adjustments that I want to do with the hair too, but I'm going to actually change her little, give her shoulder a little bit more like this. So okay, so right now I'm kind of just I'm painting from a distance, and I'm kind of starting to paint a little faster because I was talking and thinking too much about stuff. So I want to just kind of get this blocked in. So it helps to look at different references too. Um, from the background here, like I don't know if I want to do this, but maybe a little bit darker. I'll play with that a little bit more. Like I might want to add like more color in the background as well. Like right now I'm just going to keep it kind of this neutral color for now, but we'll see. Like I could see like adding some of these kind of like violety suggestions here to kind of pull things together. But anyways, let me go back to the other. Let's do this. Actually, I do want to look at that again. See, now that I look at this, I think I do want to push this back a little bit more. See, this is something that, this is, the, you know, an area that I would want to play with a little bit more, the hair and the lighting, to figure out exactly how I want to finish this off, the color, color wise. Because I don't really like this. I don't really like how I lightened this up that much. I want to push that back. So I'll probably like come back and use this reference to get a little bit more punch with my lighting. So I like some of this stuff that's like kind of suggesting this other color here in the hair. But let's see. But yeah, there's a lot of nice color changes in this reference over hair, so I probably want to play with some of that, some nice like tan kind of highlights here and a few up in here. right. So anyway, that's enough for now for like a block in, and maybe this is gonna soften that. But it's really important to figure out like um, what you want to do with the background, because the background definitely is going to complement the portrait. So and to be honest, right now I'm not sure what I want to do with that yet. Kind of making up the background as I go. All right, let me look and see if there's any questions. Um, okay, no questions. Okay. All right, so let me zoom in again just a little bit and go back to the other reference. And actually, let me look at the other one again. So I'm kind of using, I've got two references of here of her for her anatomy and her hair and everything else. Um, and one thing I want to do real quick. There's like I like how there's like this ring almost. This design here. It's like a nice curve. And I'm just gonna kind of lay that down so I don't lose that when I render the hair. This isn't gonna stay. This is just gonna give me like a little bit of guidance. There's like this nice curve with her hair. It's pretty funny. Awesome, Jason. I am from Burma, which is an Asian country. I was waiting for your live drawing. It's 3 a.m. here. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for joining, Jonathan. 3 a.m. Wow. So I'm actually finally getting at the stage of this where I would keep. This is like, again, this is why I say it's important to not get into details too soon, because at this stage I just want to continue to develop. I'm kind of like adjusting the drawing a lot, the original drawing, um, and you know I think it's important to not be afraid to do that. There's a lot that I like about this, and then there's a lot that I want to keep pushing myself to get it just right, and it's not quite at the stage I want yet, but it's getting there. And now I'm going to look at both both references to get the chin and the neck right. What's up, Joe? So basically, using two different references, obviously basing a lot of it off the one reference, but um, it's going to change things within the lighting. And obviously, I don't want to use the lighting that's in this. It's completely different than the other reference, but there is some good things in there that will help um, with the anatomy and that sort of a thing. So it's good to look at both the references. Let's see, it's more of a curve. And again, like what I usually do is try to zoom back a little bit so I can see how it looks from a distance. And there's completely different lighting on both of them, so it's a little bit tricky. So you want to try to stick with the main lighting if possible, which means that I would change some of this as well and give this more of a shadow here. Okay. So kind of like pushing back and painting from a distance can help to see some of these things, some of these changes that maybe if you're up too close, you get kind of caught up in it a little bit too much. So it's good to push back a little bit. And I want to do this a little bit more. Zoom in. Okay. So I still haven't even got really into any kind of detailing yet. Um, this is the most important part, I think, is just getting this right. So being patient enough to start to get this part right, to not zoom in too much, so that when it gets to that stage, then you can just jump into it. Part of me wants to play with that channel a little bit more. Make it a little smaller. All right. Um, if blending mode and brush mode is normal, how does your strokes have transparency? Riley's right. It's just pen pressure. Yeah, so I'm not doing any real. I don't have any weird. I mean, everything's set. You can see my opacity is 100 and my flow is at 100. Um, okay. So there's still some adjustment within the anatomy here that I want to play with. Like the side of the cheek here that I think I could develop a little bit more. Be a little bit. It could be a little bit better. Um, but I'm going to ignore that for now, just to kind of get the color kind of blocked in more how I want it to be. Jason, what an awesome presentation. So happy I could join you. Oh, no problem, Louis. That's awesome. And by the way, I got your transfer that you sent me today, the WeTransfer file. So it's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna start sketching you and your wife probably on Monday. Okay. All right. So let's see. I'm gonna do a couple last minute things here, and then I'm gonna take some questions if anyone's got questions. There's still, a ways to go on this, obviously. Um, let's see. Yeah, there's a lot more that could be pushed here with all this. I don't like how saturated some of the stuff on her body is yet, but it is okay for now. And actually, one thing I might do is this too. All right. So a lot more can be done on the blocking of the body or the clothing here, but that's for another time. And to be honest, too, I think there's some more I might want to do. Like I think I still might want to play with tucking in. Let's see. I'm gonna make a new layer just to show you what I mean. Um, like I might want to make that chin, make this all come in. Like make this come up more like that. Let's see. And then tuck all of this in. Just a little bit more. So this would all come up more like that. So I'm always trying to like push and kind of sculpt the structure to see, what could be pushed a little bit more. I mean, to be honest, I still feel like the chin, like I might want to tuck that chin in a little bit more too. Um, like the chin could be maybe even smaller. Could kind of come up more like that. So yeah, there's a lot, that I tend to do with like while I'm painting. I tend to like kind of change a lot from the original sketch that doesn't feel quite right. So there's going to be definitely a little bit of that I would want to do on this one. Cause I'm not 100% happy yet with like some of that structure there, but that's how it goes. Like this might come up more like this and then down like that. But yeah, I would say don't be afraid to like make adjustments like that. Um, and the nice thing, as I've said before, you know, being that it's a digital painting, you can kind of push and explore those shapes and the anatomy and just kind of play with it a little bit. Don't be afraid to um, something feels like it could maybe be shorter or smaller. Just make the change, or at least what I just did is kind of create a new layer and just play with it a little and see what works. If it doesn't work, forget it, you know. All right. All right. So it's definitely coming along, and I feel pretty good about it. But I definitely could also spend a lot more time on it. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and hopefully it gives a little insight into the process of blocking in a painting, and thinking about warm and cools and uh, and that sort of a thing. I typically the block in stage is the most important part because it's where I'm kind of developing, how the lighting's going to be and that sort of a thing, and also, like I said, the sketch isn't always 100% accurate, so it's also a stage like to continue to sculpt um, the work a little bit and to continue to adjust if it's needed, adjust some of the anatomy, change things. Um, so I tend to do a lot of that all the way up to the end of my, like, even when I start doing details, I start zooming in and getting the eyes just right and that sort of a thing. I will make adjustments as it develops. So I'm sure everybody does that kind of stuff. So, anyways, if does anyone have any questions before we end this stream? Let's see. One one doubt in the economic part is it's not easy to find information. How do you decide how much to charge? Do you do it by hour or by project? Um, Really, it's different. Like if it's a that's a good question, by the way, Fernando. If it's like a magazine type, excuse me, publication, um, they there's usually not really any wheeling and dealing going on there. Like if what they usually tell you, tell the artist what they want. This is, and then they give you what their budget is, and so you basically accept it or you don't. Every once in a while, I can be like, hey, you know what? Could you add a little bit more? And this is my reason why. And sometimes people are workable that way. If it's There's certain jobs that I've done where I just give a day rate, and so certain clients ask for a day rate, and so when that happens, I know I'm going to be working for like 4 or 5 days on something. I'll give them a day rate for that. If it's a private commission, um, I don't charge typically by the hour. It depends on what kind of project it is. I typically just kind of figure out how much time it's going to take me to do that job, and then I try to think about what I think is fair for my time, and that's how I usually decide that. So, um, hey, thanks, Lester. So yeah, uh, that's let's see. I don't know if there's any other questions, or I keep hearing weird chimey sounds in my ears. I don't know what that is. Something with this live stream. um, but anyways, so if is there any other questions before I end up ending the feed here? I'm gonna give you guys just a couple minutes. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, this is still, I think, I feel pretty happy with the way that this turned out. But again, still very much the block in stage. Like if I zoom in really close, you can still see um, it's actually got a nice kind of traditional feel to it. A lot of nice texture in there. Um, but there's a lot more that can be done tightening up wise, but the overall image, what I'm caring about, what's most important to me is how everything's pulling together, if the colors pulling together, the values and everything. And once I get it to, it's actually very close. This is actually very close of a block in, but once I get it to the stage where I feel like, okay, the next phase is now like zooming in, for example, and working on the eyes. So like the eyes are, the colors are, I like the way the color feels right now, but now it's obviously, it's very rough still, so it's obvious that I can go in here now and start to really start to tighten up, the features like the iris, and try to get the soft edges. And so what I would do in that instance is, I would zoom in close like this, and I would start to really look at like this, the soft edges, for example. um, Hold on one second. So for example, I would look at let's see, the edge of the iris here, and I would start to slow down, and I would start to kind of block in this soft edge where the iris meets the white of the eye. So it's kind of got this kind of a tone to it. So, and then what you want to do is you want to start to kind of soften these together. This is the fun part, and and this part takes a lot of time as well. But this is the part that people usually like. They like to get in there and see all the details, but it's the part that is not as important as getting the foundations right. So that's why I focus mostly on getting the foundations right first. So, but this stage is important too, because again, it's all about, value, and that sort of thing. But more than that, it's about trying to get your edges soft and running into each other correctly. There's a lot of transitions between values and edges and soft edges, and that's mostly what I'm trying to focus on at this stage, is trying to like get that just right. Especially on an eye like this, you want to really get those edges looking right. There's actually like this really nice kind of subtle bluish in there that I like. It's real subtle, but I kind of like it. Put some of that in there. And I'm just painting over some of those sketch highlights. I want to get this to feel more like how the eye looks in the reference. So basically, this is what I would do at this stage, is slow down now and really get in there with all this detail. And really, it's just about softening edges. A lot of patience. So there's like little highlights in there, lighter values here. And actually this be more like that. So you can see just from, just that little bit that I just did, it's starting to have more of a, starting to come together. But like I could spend so much more time on this, and then that's basically when you start to really see it's starting to feel more realistic. And the trick is it's really patience. So I might try to actually finish this one at some point. Um, there's a long ways to go on it still, but I really enjoyed it. So, anyways, thank you all for everyone who joined me. Really appreciate you taking the time to watch and ask questions and that sort of thing. So, thank you so much. I hope you guys are enjoying Lightbox. Tomorrow, I'm doing a caricature, what do you like a drawing jam with a bunch of artists. Me and Voter Tulp, Tom Fluharty, Court Jones, um, just a ton more. I can't think of all the names right now, um, but it's gonna be really really cool. So definitely check that out. And I think that's gonna be at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So, anyways, so yeah, so you can see that eye is starting to feel a little bit more realistic. Still ways to go, but um, hopefully it makes you know more sense after you see the beginning stage of the block into slowing down and then going at it at a more slower, more patient pace to get the details. Um, so yeah, again, thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. Let me see if there's any other questions. Fernando, thanks, Jason. Great work in such a short time. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. And I like your work too. You do really nice work. Um, so it's always so hard to say goodbye, but I can hear my little toddler upstairs running around, so I need to go up there and do dad duties and stuff like that. So, anyways, thank you everybody so much. I really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this, and I really appreciate it. So, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Oh, before I go, I'll say this one more time, and I'll share this again. Everyone, please check out. Um, Everyone, please check out gumroad.com/Jason Seiler. I have a new tutorial I just put out with Humphrey Bogart, and it's a Procreate demo that I did on my iPad, and I think you really enjoy it. It was a lot of fun to do, and I put a lot into it, a lot of information, a lot of teaching and tips and different things. So I hope you really check that out and enjoy that. At gumroad.com/Jason Seiler. There's other tutorials and videos as well. Also, I just today added my actual file of the Bogart painting. So when you buy it, it comes in the layers that I painted it. So you can turn the layers off and on. You can see it. You can paint on it yourself if you want to. So that's available as well. So hopefully you enjoy that. And as always, I appreciate your support. And feel free to drop by, say hi on my Instagram and all that kind of fun stuff. And stay tuned also for the podcast. Um, Next week, I'm having Voter Tulp. He's an awesome artist who's been doing stuff at Lightbox. He's a schools teacher. And then the next week is my 100th episode, which I'm having Bobby Chu on. So that's going to be really cool. Plus, I'm going to have some other special guests. And there's also some really cool guests coming up that I'm really excited about. Um, Sebastian Kruger, hopefully, that's something that we've been talking back and forth, but it looks like that might be sometime in October, and that's going to be really, really cool because he doesn't really do interviews very often. So I'm excited about that. It'll be great to talk with him. He's an awesome guy, an awesome artist. Um, so yeah, so check that out. Make sure you um, check it out, subscribe, drop me a line, all that kind of stuff, and we'll all catch you on the flippity floppity side. So Hey, thanks, TJ. You're awesome, man. Thank you, Garashish. Hopefully, I said that right. And thank you, Riley, as well. And Wilford says, I'm working currently with Procreate. What would be a good canvas size for this detail? I um, Let me check my Procreate real quick because I don't remember the exact size of. Let's see. Let's go back. I think 16 by 12 might be the size that I did the Bogart. Wait, hold on, let me check. Yeah, 16 by 12. Um, I mean, you can do larger, but I tend to do um, around that size because mostly I'm doing like smaller block ends and stuff like that. So um, this is like this. Let's see what. Let's see. Look at the size on this one real quick. This is 12.4 by 10.5. Um, so yeah, that's kind of typical, I guess. Depending on what the job is, sometimes I'd work way larger than this too. But again, I spent most of my time painting this from a distance. So, anyways, hopefully that helps. And thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.